Hi everybody, welcome to our CakeFu Master Series. Today we have a really wonderful, talented cake decorator with us. She is the grand champion of the Oklahoma State Sugar Art Show of 2012. So we're very excited to have Vivian Pham with us. Hi Vivian.
Hi, how's everyone?
I think we're all good. Hopefully we're all good. If we're here, we should be good, right? Well, we wanted to start off and talk a little bit about you, Vivian. Tell everybody who you are, how you got to where you are, and all of that. So we will go ahead and jump right into it. Let's see. It says you started baking in high school for your friends.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell us about how that all started?
Okay, so in high school, everyone's giving each other gifts and stuff, and as a high school student, you didn't have a lot of money, so I've always went to the store to buy those cheap $1 cake mixes and frostings, and then I just made them for friends' birthdays. And then I was pretty competitive, so I wanted to make it better looking than the other girls, and so I know. So as every cake progressed, it looks better and better. And then during my senior year, a representative from my culinary school came down and told me to do this not a cake competition, timed competition for a plated dessert, and that gave me, I won first place for that, and it gave me the scholarship to go to culinary school. And through culinary school, I found that I love cake decorating, and that was pretty much the end of that story of how I started, and I just love it ever since then.
Awesome. That is so great. I think that competitive side to you is probably what's helped you do so well. What made you decide to go to Oklahoma?
It was actually one of my chefs in culinary school. She posted about that she wanted to go see it and who wanted to go with her, and I was like, I'll check it out. And I fell in love. It was so amazing just meeting everyone there, and I fell in love. And the next year I was like, I'm going to try to compete, but maybe I'll just compete for the smaller ones, because I felt really kind of worried if I was going to place anything or not. So yeah, and that's how it got me started. And then the first year I competed, I was so shocked. I was a gold medalist, and I was sixth place. And then the second year, that's when I won the grand prize, and that was the most shocking news of all. So
that is so awesome, so amazing. I've been to Tulsa a couple of times, and just it's a really cool experience to be able to see all the amazing work that's there. And you have to see that kind of stuff in person to be able to really appreciate the real cleanness, the detail, everything that goes into it. So
yeah.
I wish I had seen your grand cake.
I wish you were there too, because it would have been so much fun.
Oh, well, the first time I actually met you was in 2011, and I was out there in Tulsa, and you just were such a sweetheart. And your cake, I actually had one of your cakes picked as my absolute favorites. Your cake picked as one of my favorites. And so I just knew that there was something big coming for you. So I was so excited to hear that you had won the next year. That was so cool.
I'm still in shock and stuff. I have to go and look at the cake and be like, okay, this was real. So
yeah, that's so awesome. Have you found that it has opened doors for you? Has it really done good for you?
Oh yeah, so many people are just, it's just amazing how many people look up to me, and people wanted to see demos and make cakes for them. So it's just being in that competition and showing that you did compete in it is a huge thing as it is. So being grand prize is unbelievable.
Awesome. That is great. All right. Let's see. You went to school at Professional Culinary Institute, and then you've had your American Cake Decorating Magazine, things like that. Just all of this has happened fairly quickly for you.
Oh yeah, with
So
oh, I've just like I don't even know. And within 2 years, it was like a nobody, and then now I have lots of younger cake artists or people who are beginning, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I love your work, and can you show me how to do this and that? And it's just it's overwhelming at times, but it's just so rewarding.
awesome, awesome. I have to fix one thing really fast. The screen is going to go away, you guys. Don't worry about that. It will be coming right back. I just had one. I realized that I put up the wrong screen because I had made some changes to something. So hi, you can see me twice. And you should be able to see. There we go. That should be better. Can you guys see that? I hope. There we go. Okay. We are going to have Vivian walk us through a really cool training. You've done a dragon cake that was just really super cool, and you took pictures of the whole process, and that's what you're going to share with everybody today. So that's really, really cool. Again, for those of you that are just joining, maybe new to this, I know we had a whole lot of Facebook likes last night, so if anybody's new, welcome. And let's see, just so that you know how things work, you should be able to see the screen, the main screen up above that shows about Vivian. That's where you'll see the pictures of the project. Vivian will walk you through everything. Off to the right-hand side is a little chat tab. You should be able to say hi, talk amongst yourselves, and because we do have a really cool cake group here, and so yeah, say hi. And then down below is an ask a question box. That's where throughout this training, if there's something that you feel like you need to have explained a little bit better, or something just anything that you would like to ask Vivian, go ahead and ask it there, and at the end we will do a question and answer portion. So okay, we will get started into our training. So this right here is the inspiration that you had, and I'll let you just go from here and walk us through it.
Okay. So this artist, she's my favorite artist. Her name is Stephanie, and I can't pronounce the last name, but yeah. But she's just amazing, and I fell in love with this piece, and I every time I look at anything, I just wanted to know how would I make that into cake, and that's what inspired me for this dragon cake. So this is my inspiration, and yeah.
Awesome. It's a really cool inspiration. So okay, so here's the starts of it.
Yeah. So first off, I grounded Rice Krispies, so it's a lot more finer, so I can get into those little cracks. And I've put it together using tons of dowels and sticking things here and there, and finally, after I had the right shape, I let it harden. So
about the Rice Krispies, how you I guess blend that up, you food process it. Does that help it to stick together better? Like, does it hold firmer, or is it just a matter of making it,
I feel it does hold a lot better, and on top of that, there's less bumps into your Rice Krispies. So when you add another layer of fondant or whatnot, you don't have that ugly like all those wrinkles across your sculptures and stuff. So it does really help grinding it, or at least grinding half of it and having half whole. So.
Awesome. Cool. That's a great tip right there. Okay, so then you covered it.
I covered it in and gum paste, and I let it harden. And as you can tell, the neck was really, really fragile, so I had something holding it up the whole entire time. So. And it helps
Yeah.
to cover the thing in gum paste so that when it hardens, the Rice Krispie doesn't. I don't know. I made this during the summer, so it's really hot. So the Rice Krispie would sometimes melt here and there. So it really helped out having gum paste covered over it.
Good idea. That's very good. Did you uh, did you put anything underneath the gum paste, like frosting or anything like that, to make it smoother, or just right over the Rice Krispies?
Nope, right over the Rice Krispies.
Okay. There you go.
And then this was before I got my uh, my automatic pasta machine. So I was rolling these pieces by hand. So I bought tiny rose petal cutters, and one by one I would cut them out and place them onto the tail of the dragon and build on to that from there. And as a adhesive, I mixed together Tylose and hot water, and I found that that was the best substance to use for me. I just love it. I don't know why. It just feels like glue, but it's not glue.
Yeah, yeah. I like the Tylose thing because you do get it on your hands and it's not really sticky, but it sticks to it
Yeah.
sticks to everything together. So it's not a mess. So yeah, I agree. Awesome. So you hand cut out every little one of these things.
Yes, that was
Awesome.
very painstaking.
Labor of love right there.
Oh yeah.
There you
And
go.
as you can tell, I started off really tiny when it comes to the tail, and as I progressed to the bigger part of the dragon, the rose petals increased in size, and which made it easier, but it was still this is something you have to do with a lot of patience and a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
So just little by little, and it started looking more realistic with every single layer that I
Yeah.
have on, and I don't know. I feel like I like the way it looks better with the smaller scales and the bigger scales. It looks more realistic.
Yeah, I do really like that how it progresses. Where did you find that small of a cutter?
Oh gosh, it was. I think at this bakery, not the bakery, this cake supply shop, and they just had tons of cutters for roses, so I bought them all. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's nice to have them so small. You can do a lot of little detail work. That's great. Okay, so then you just keep on.
Yep, I just kept on going, and this was I don't even remember how long it took me, but I remembered it was just such a long time because it was just, figuring out when I should go smaller, when should I go bigger, and I know it's just putting a scale out after another, but just positioning of the scale so it doesn't look too, I want to say too routine or
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Can't think of the word.
I know
I
it's too early in the morning right now.
I get it. So you went to another size up in pedals for the rest of it? Okay.
Yes.
All right. And if there was somebody that wanted to do this that didn't have as much time, do you know of another way that they could do this, or is it?
What I tried when I was practicing, what I was trying to do is those big flower cutters, the one with the five petals. I
Uh-huh.
found out that if you cut it in half, so there's a two petal and then a three petal, and starts adding them on, that was a lot faster, and
Okay.
so that created a different look to it. But this one, I just love this one a lot more. But that one would probably be the quickest way to do this. Or
Okay.
if you cover the whole dragon and bond it and using uh, a rounded piping tip and then just start indenting it into your cake, then it will have a similar scale effect.
Okay. It may not be quite as dimensional, but it would still give that effect. That's a good idea. Okay.
Okay, and then as you can see that I added mountains to the side, and then I'm just finishing up the top of the head of the dragon. And the next part, it's me getting onto the face of the dragon, which was probably the hardest part.
How did you go about deciding how to shape this dragon? Uh, did you just start throwing it together, or was there any kind of?
I looked at the pic. I think I stared at that picture for more than I should have, and so that's my. I just wanted to make the dragon look exactly like the picture as best I could.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay.
Okay, and as you can see, I finished the head of the dragon, and what I did was I covered the dragon with a thick layer of gum paste, and using shortening, I smoothed out and made indentations of where his cheekbones and his jawline and everything, and using sculpting tools just to get that perfect shape that the dragon had. And then for the whiskers underneath the dragon, I used smaller parts of gum paste, and I used an X-Acto knife to score some lines into it to create that hair look, and then I just attached them onto the dragon.
That's great. All right. And there's a
And
closer up of the face.
yep, as you can see, I just kept on smoothing the dragon out over and over again. And it doesn't hurt to add, like, the way I know when you first add shortening onto it, it creates that sheen, but give it a day or two, that sheen will just disappear, and it looks like you just was just so proud to put on fondant. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. That looks really great. I love the way that you blended the scales into the smooth part by adding on just those little, is it dots of
Yeah,
gum paste?
I cut out little dot, like rolled out little balls, and then when I added them on, I just pressed them down. So yeah.
All right. And is the face part, is it a different color from the scales?
It is just because I was running out of I think at the time I was using, I forgot, I know I wasn't using Americolor colors. I think I was using Wilton, cause,
Uh-huh.
and Wilton colors, they kind of fade a little, so it's
Mm-hmm.
actually, and then I was running out of yellow as well, so yeah, and I figured since I'm gonna brush it, it wouldn't matter
Mm-hmm.
too much.
Okay. All right. So that wasn't necessarily intentional eh, that you did two different colors,
No.
but it looks good.
Thank you.
So, and like you said, at the end, you're going to airbrush it. So,
hmm And
okay.
then I started with the sides of the cake because the artist's style of the way her fantasy world look is just like gravity. It's just not there, and it's just so mystical. And I just wanted to create that look, and I started adding rocks onto the side of the cake, and yeah. And at first, I added cake pieces to create the boulders, and then I covered those, and then on top of that I rolled out smaller pieces of fondant added on top of that. So that's how I did the mountains.
Awesome. So you said that the bigger boulders are actually cake.
So I think I made something like well, not really cake. I kind of cheated, and I used or rounded out Oreos with cream cheese. So it's like a
Okay.
cake pop back then, but
There
yeah.
you go. So basically a cake pop mixture that you shaped and then stuck on.
Yes.
Well, that's cool. Very nice. Okay.
And then as you can see, the more the more I add on to it, the more it looks lifelike and less cartoonish, I want to
Mm-hmm.
say. And I just wanted to get spot on that look that she had.
Yeah, I love the little ones ones that are standing like on
Oh
top
yeah,
of each other.
the top of it.
Stonehenge. Stonehenge, I guess. Very cool. Okay.
Okay, and then for some reason I decided to redo the mountains. Yeah, just I added on. I didn't want to create because the main part of the dragon was already very, very detailed. So I wanted the side of the cakes to be a lot more plain. So I made the mountains very flat.
Okay. All right. See, it's okay to redo things, right?
Oh yeah, I mess up all the time.
Well, and that's the great thing about cake decorating is, you make a mistake, you either fix it or you change the design of your cake, right?
Or if you're awesome enough, you can just say, "Well, that's how I wanted it done."
Exactly.
Yeah, as you can tell, I've added more rocks that doesn't look very natural at all. It's just precariously placed so it looks very unique and different.
That is really cool. Very cool.
Okay,
Okay.
and this is my favorite part. I love painting on cakes, so using gin, because that was the only alcohol I had at the time, and blue food coloring, I added designs to rocks and to make it look more detailed and real. Not, I wouldn't say realistic, but they have this fossil look to it, and I just loved it, and just adding more and more detail to it, and then it just became just how it was. So
It's really, really cool. I love the swirls and the just everything. It just, that fantasy kind of feel. I love it. And you can see already the huge difference that it has made in just that little bit of, painting that you did.
and also, towards after I was done painting it, I've used some petal dust, different shades of blues, purples, browns, a little bit of yellow here and there to create shadows and depth and just make it look more 3D so when people look at it, it just pops out even more.
I love that. It looks really awesome. Okay.
Okay, and I think at this point I was finished with the rock part. Um, I after I dusted it, I noticed I went over my original painting. So I think in the next one I repainted over again the lines, but it helped
Okay.
out that I made the lines in the first place.
Oh,
Um, well, this one. I wanted to. This was the first time I've ever made any type of molds of my own, and so I got this liquid silicone mold maker where you put one equal amounts into the other equal amounts and you pour it in. And I bought these gems at Michael's and I just stuck
hmm
them in a box. And I think the next picture will show you that I have a stream. Yes, this was me pouring the solution into the gems, and then once it hardened, I have gem molds because they're just so much cheaper that way. So
yeah, yeah. Well, and this type of mold that has the, just the flexibility. You can buy the gem molds for like sugar work, I guess, that are those hard plastic, you know. But this right here, it's flexible. You can, pop it out and.
and on top of that, usually the gem molds that I've seen, they've had like one style and then the next one's another style. With this one, I
It's
knew it was going
true.
to be time consuming, so I was like, oh, I just want them all to be circles or squares so that when I place it all on, it's just so much easier instead of placing it on, waiting for it to dry and taking it off. And so
Yeah,
I probably made 3 of these just for the purpose of this dragon cake.
awesome. Very cool.
Okay,
Okay.
so next I started shading the dragon more. I I think I went through so many different yellows, golds, and I've added browns and reds as well. And I started at the inside corners of every scale, And with paintbrush, like those tiny paintbrushes, I would go through every single scale to make sure each of them had some dust on it, and avoiding the rounded part of the scale.
All right. Was this for a competition piece or was this for a
Um,
client? Or?
Gosh, it was just because I was bored.
Hey, that's awesome.
I think this is when I was starting off, and I couldn't find a job in that summer because I didn't have so much of a profile. So I was just like, I'm just gonna build up my profile, and I decided to have these little goals. And I've always wanted to make a fantasy or dragon cake, so this was one of the check marks of it.
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, it looks amazing, and to have put that much detail into it, I thought for sure it had to be like a competition piece. So the fact that you were adding this much detail into it and taking that much time to do it, just you know, it
Yeah,
shows how much of a competitive and have to do it just right kind of person
yeah.
you are. I am so that way too.
Oh my gosh, it,
So,
it annoys me when it's not perfect, and it's just like everyone's their worst critic. So
yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree. But it looks wonderful so far. Okay, so here's more detail work.
So as you can see it on his thigh, I've added browns to it. Depending on what parts I wanted to highlight on the dragon, especially his thighs. In the pictures, they were a lot darker, so I used the brown. And you can see that I really emphasized that corner, that little corner. So that's I emphasized this part when I was shading in and avoided that circular part. And then towards his torso, I used a more vibrant yellow and to emphasize the highlighting of that part.
Perfect. All right. So that's a really good way to add even more dimension in that. So,
Okay, so this was a huge jump because I don't know. I think from that picture to the next, I think I was working all night on this cake, and I think I drank so many Red Bulls. So let's see. Starting with the face, or actually, I don't know why I added mushrooms to it. I just thought it was really cute.
that's cool. I love it.
So,
It adds a different color, a different dimension, a different kind of interest. I love it.
and then, as you can see, I shaded in the face of the dragon, and I've added talons and his head part, which I took wires. I couldn't get the right way to make that out of fondant and gum paste because it would just be so fragile. So what I did instead was I I mixed together fondant with a lot of water until it becomes a very liquid state, and then I would take these wires, the floral wires, and I would just dip them in and let it harden in the shapes that I wanted. And so that's how I created his little talons instead of covering each little piece with fondant. It just created a smoother look.
Awesome. Okay.
Here's the close-up of the dragon. I first shaded him in different shades of blues, grays, blacks, and then as you can see on his facial structure right here, I've used a paintbrush to emphasize more scales instead of adding more fondant, just to have that illusion. And then when I got to his mouth, I think I was working with toothpicks at this time because his teeth were really tiny, and I don't know if you can see, you can kind of see his tongue in there too. So I was just adding tiny bits of pieces of fondant and sculpting it to create his teeth, the jawline right here, and then
Mm-hmm.
I've added red to it. So
It's a lot of really cool details. And you know, the details are what really make it so amazing. So I love the spiky.
Cool.
Yeah, those are cool. And I love how the ones that are coming, like his ear kind of things, is that they're supposed to be
I
that
know,
have
I already
the
know. I was just following the picture, so I was
that
just
look
like,
almost like a calla lily
I
coming out of the
know.
side. I love it. It's awesome. Okay.
And then I think I've explained the wires that I've added on, but you can
Hmm.
also see that I started adding the gems onto it too at the base of his feet. Because I don't know, for
Hmm.
some reason, dragons and gems, they kind of just, go hand in hand. So,
Protecting his treasure, right?
yeah. Um, this was the first time I've ever used sugar veil. Yeah, I splurged myself that summer, and I was just like, I'm gonna try sugar veil, and so I made sugar veil, and I think it took me a couple times, especially since it was summer and the humidity was just not letting it dry or whatnot. And then when I was attaching the the wings on, I used those. I want to say they're flower formers that you get at
Mm.
at the Michael stores, and they're just like half of a pipe. So I used
Yeah,
those,
the Wilton ones.
yeah, and I placed them along the side of his back to help support the wings.
Very cool. That looks really good. So the sugar veil is what you used for the wings.
I
Is
used
that?
it just because I feel that if I use either fondant or gum paste, it'd probably just shatter, or just because
Hmm.
the verticalness of it will just slide off or too heavy. So it was a really fun thing. And you can see that right in this picture, I've cut out the bottom part of his wings to create the more dragoness look to it, and I cut out little holes with
Uh-huh.
scissors and everything.
That's so cool. So you just used like little tiny scissors, is that?
I get a lot of my supplies, especially the scissors. I love scrapbooking scissors because they're just so tiny and the precision is just amazing.
Hmm. I have had a pair of scrapbooking scissors. They are.
Yeah,
The point
the
is
bumblebee
so.
one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. They're so precise. Right at the end, they're so exact and so
yeah.
sharp. You can get a
And
lot of really
I
good
think
detail.
when I first got them, I was cutting through everything like Coke cans. I was just like, oh my God, this is awesome. So,
They are pretty impressive. All right.
okay, so this is the final picture of the dragons, and I borrowed the camera just to take it. And as you can tell, just having all these, it's a lot of little processes, but it just the outcome is so worth it. And
Hmm.
just shading here, there, it just adds to the final piece of the dragon. And when I took pictures, I was just like, oh my gosh, that looks really
Looks
legit.
so
So,
cool. So
yeah.
awesome. Well, you
So,
know, and this is a really good example of needing to know how to do so many different things. There's working with the gum paste and fondant, there's, the sculpting, there's the painting with, little details, there's the powder work, there's so much involved in just this one project.
oh yeah.
So, but very cool. Right, and here's another detail picture. I absolutely love this.
Yeah. I think I got a little carried away because I was just like, when you get into your cakes and it just like you forget everything else, and I think like I didn't eat for like hours or something like that, or most of the time when I was working, since it was the summer, I would work at night, so I wouldn't know what time it is, and I just like, well, here's a swirl. Oh, this one should be a swirl here, and then it just went on and on and on until it's just like, oh, the sun's
Yeah,
out right
yeah.
now.
Until you hear birds chirping. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've done that so many times. But no, I don't think it's, to me, it doesn't look like too much. I mean, I'm sure that if you wanted to do less, it would still give a really good effect. But I think the amount that you put into it just makes it look absolutely amazing. So spectacular. So, okay. And then there's the
There's
gems.
the gems. I've colored those with, I think, just regular food coloring, and then I luster dust them a little bit to create that sheen.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Great.
And that's another. As you can see, it's just so many. Your eyes just wanders everywhere. It's just oh, and I love that part where people can look at cakes and just be like, wow, and they just
Yeah.
stare at it for days. So
Yeah, and you could to see all the little details and all the different ways that you painted this and painted that, and it's really cool. Really cool. And you can see that. I mean, I love how in the middle of the that one rock right down front and center, it looks like it has scales too, almost.
oh yeah.
Yeah. It's just the style that it is. It's really I love it.
And
Okay.
then, oh, here's a better view of those wings and the
Mm-hmm.
holes I was cutting out of. And there's my little, little mushrooms that I've just put together last minute. And for the grass, I think I've used those mesh strainers, and I just pushed on it through, like how you used to do those Play-Doh things with the hair going out. So
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I've seen a few ways to do sugar grass, but I haven't heard that one yet. So that's really cool.
so these are the mountains, and for the sky, I was planning on leaving it plain, but I think I wanted a little bit of color into the sky to make it look like a sunset colors. And
Hmm.
here I've used the same technique as I did on the rocks, where I dusted it, I painted over it, creating different kind of scenes to it, something different than your original rocks, where it's just lines and lines and lines.
Hmm. So is the main part of the cake, was it just like dry dusted with?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think I've had a lot of people ask me a couple times why didn't I use an airbrush machine. I was too poor to have one, so
Oh.
so I opted out for using petal dust for everything. So, but
You know what? I did that for a long time too. You just do it. You
yeah,
work with what you've got.
exactly. And I feel like even if I did this in airbrush, or if I had to do it over again and I have an airbrush machine, I think I still would do it in the petal dust, because
Hmm.
it adds that, I don't know, the richness of it, and just me getting complete control of the shading part. And even though it was really messy, it was just, I loved it. It was like painting.
Hmm. Yeah. Very cool. Okay.
So the wings, they were really pale, so I don't know what it was that I used before, but it was this gold shimmery liquid thing that I bought online from this supplier called fondantsource.com. And it smelled, I don't I just brushed it on as a gold thing, and it created this look that I really loved. And the more I went over and over in it, it creates these lines that created
Hmm.
depth in his wings and stuff. And I think with this cake, I just really wanted a lot of details and a lot of, you know, the added look to it. And you can even tell on his backside, I added a lot of browns to it too.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that the streaking and stuff in his wings. It makes it, and with the holes in the bottom, just makes it look like this dragon has been through a lot. Has gone through his battles and things like that. It's just really cool. Okay,
And that is the final piece.
there you go. What amazing work! It's absolutely spectacular. all the details and everything comes together and just made a perfect cake. You
Yep.
did good. You did good. Right, so now you guys all know how to make that. We're going to go into, Vivian has shared a recipe with us. We're going to talk about that for a minute, and then we'll get to our questions. Make sure that, again, if you guys haven't asked your question yet that you want to hear, make sure you go in and type that into the Ask a Question box down below, and we will get to as many of them as we can. All right. So let's see, this is your recipe.
Yes. It's not my recipe, but I've used it so many times that, I'm going to call it mine. So.
It's, you know what? We all get our recipes from somewhere else. I don't think there's ever a truly original recipe. I mean, sure, you can take a recipe, make your changes and things like that, but yeah.
So this is my go-to last minute, any kind of birthday occasion that someone was like, well, are you going to bring dessert? And I'm like, oh, well, I only have 1 hour till I get there. So this is probably the easiest recipe that I have, and it's so delicious. You just need 2 cans of croissant Pillsbury rolls, or just the cheap kind's fine, 2 ounces of cream cheese, 1 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, butter, sugar, and cinnamon. So really, really basic, simple recipe, and you can all make it all in one bowl and one pan, and that's all you need.
Awesome. That's what we like, right?
Yep.
Okay, and you've got some pictures of how you put them together, so that's really fun.
So first you roll out the bottom piece for your pan, and you can use many different pans, and you can cut the rolls however you want, depending on what kind of shape you want it. It really doesn't matter. And I usually, when you roll out the rolls, usually the first layer is really nice and the second layer is really ugly. So there's always those 2 boxes, and I've always saved the top one for later and use the bottom one, the ugly one for
the bottom.
Yeah.
That's smart.
It's just like I'm just going to squish it into the pan.
Uh-huh.
And the next one, so pretty much I whip together the cream cheese with sugar. And I've done it so many times without a whisk that you can just microwave your cream cheese, just nuke it for a little bit so it softens. And then you add your sugar, and then using a spatula, just mix it together and add the vanilla. And the vanilla, I typically use the Mexican vanilla just because it has that cinnamon smell to it. The taste is different. And then I spread it across the croissant layer, as you can see. And then this is the hardest part of this, was adding the top layer, because that's why I use the nicer layers, so that when I pinch together all the little seams, so that when I place it on top, it creates a nicer look instead of me squishing it to the side here and there. And sometimes I would even roll it out a little bit with some flour just to make it look even better. And it's better to have your piece bigger than your pan than it is. And you just pretty much using a pinching thing to pinch the seams together.
Okay, cool.
Yep, and then I melted butter on top of it. This is probably like the most fattening recipe ever, because you have your croissants, and then your cream cheese, and then tons of butter and sugar. So I spreaded butter on top of the top part, and then I mixed together cinnamon and sugar, and you just dust it on top, and the more the better. That's everyone's favorite part. And you bake it for 30 minutes at 350 until it's golden brown, or until your house smells so delicious. Like I've made some so many times that, like, when I leave the house, it's half gone, and I just like
oops, did I do that? Yeah, that's what desserts are for, right?
Yeah.
kind of splurge a little bit. Awesome. For those of you that may not have caught all of that, I will post it on our website. I have a couple that I need to post, so we'll be putting those up shortly. Okay, so let's get on to our questions. We have quite a few. Let's see. Here's an interesting one. You are probably in a hot dry climate, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close. It was the middle of the summer, so and the house I was in didn't have really good air conditioning.
Okay. All right. Well, Sandra is asking, what is the best fondant to use in a hot, dry climate?
I love Masa. I think that's
Mesa.
what it is. I love their fondant so much. I'm so thankful that they made that fondant because it's just like it works so well in extreme weather, whether it's cold or hot. And then also I love the fact that if I refrigerate it, it doesn't, you know how when you refrigerate fondant, it creates that sheen or the water, just that water sheen on the outside of your cakes. With that fondant, it doesn't. And it also rolls out really thin too. So I think that's my favorite to use.
It is spectacular fondant. We had Nicholas Lodge on here a couple weeks ago, or no, just last week, and he works very closely with Albert Ooster Imports, and so he is helping them to develop new colors for their Masa fondant. So yeah, it's Albert Ooster Imports is where you'll find it. It's called Masa Grishna, something like that.
I'm just like, but I love that they've been developing more and more colors now.
Yeah, and they have such cool colors.
And they rarely fade too, and it's just very vibrant.
Yeah, wonderful fondant. Okay, let's see. Oh, I skipped down, I think. All right. Here's someone asking about a YouTube video that you did.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. She said, I just watched your YouTube video and I was blown away. Your technique appears to be a fairly simple design layered in lash groupings. Fabulous. What's the mixture of fondant and gum paste? What do you use as glue? Lots of questions. Do you ever use extra side support to hold up the weight of the grouping of leaves, flowers, or designs? Wishing great success in all your endeavors.
Okay, so that's a lot of questions.
You want me to start and you want me to break them down?
One at a time.
Okay, how about first, before we do that, do you want to explain what what your YouTube video is about and maybe where to find it?
Yes, it was for my first competition ever, and I wanted to document every single step that I did, and on top of it being the longest cake I ever did, I think I spent 350 hours on it. It even took longer because I had to set up the videos for it, but pretty much it was a time lapse of me beginning to end of my first competition cake, and it was a purple, and that purple was the same fondant I used from Masa. So that's how much I love that fondant. And
it's a really good color.
Oh yeah, and especially since I don't have to knead in that purple. Yeah,
purple is so hard to get too. Ugh.
Exactly, and so that cake, my inspiration was Fabergé eggs, and so it's in a time period of, I think the video is around 20 minutes, and you can find it on YouTube and just search up Vivian Pham 2011, and it will be the first one on there. And it wasn't meant to be shown as an instructional video. It's meant to show that this is how long these cakes take. And people don't know how long any cakes take, so it just helps out knowing that every little detail that everyone wants just takes so much time.
Yeah. It doesn't just appear. It has to be put there.
And then I think with my style and design, I don't use a lot of molds at all, so it's a lot of
Hmm.
just little pieces added on together to create the last final look of it.
Okay. So one of the questions was, what mixture of fondant and gum paste?
I think for that cake or for any of my cakes, I just make it up. Like if a if a part that I wanted to be a lot more defined and sturdy, then I use more gum paste. Usually I start off with 50-50, half and half. And
Hmm.
then if I wanted a part to be like standing out a lot more, then I add more fondant. If a part that I wanted to curve, like the leafings and stuff, I would add more. Sorry, did I say fondant earlier? Yes. Sorry,
Maybe
sorry.
gum paste.
I meant if I wanted it sturdier, I would use gum paste more, and if I wanted more flexible, I would use more fondant.
Okay. Very nice. So it really just depends on the project. Very cool. Okay. Um, let's see. Do you ever use extra side support to hold up the weight of the grouping of leaves, flowers, and designs?
I typically don't. I don't know how it holds up. I think it's the Tylose in the water that just holds it together, but I tend to work. I don't add them all at once. Like in a sense that I do, I build up. So I would make it, let it dry, and then add more. So that everything settles. Because if you add on something so huge, it will just start, just dying and
Mm-hmm.
pressing. So yeah, and I tend to, when I do leafings or any kind of flowers, I have the pasta machine, and then it just rolls out everything so thin, so it's not a lot of weight at all.
Perfect. Okay. Um, and then let's see. What do you use as glue? I think you went over that at the beginning, but
I I I I switch it up here and there. Tylose being one of them. I also do use gum trigaga. That one.
that
That.
drag
Drag,
again.
I know how to spell it, but just saying it is just, no. Why can't you just put gum tea?
Exactly.
I use that, and I've heard a lot of people use CMC as well. Since I already have Tylose and the gum tea part, I just use that, and I've always started off with just a small cup of water and putting the Tylose in. And at first it's gonna be clumpy, but then you just keep on mixing it and let it settle probably overnight, and slowly
Mhm.
the whole thing becomes very gelatinous.
Yeah. Hmm. Perfect. Okay. Let's see. This is a really tough question that all of our cake decorators get asked, it seems. Someone is asking, do you have a simple equation that you use to price cakes?
Um, hmm. I do. In a sense, a lot of people ask me for cakes, and I start out with the basics. Usually, my birthday cakes, like just a simple rounded 8 or 10 inch cake, would be about $100. And then any of my sculpted cakes, I start off with a base of $300. Anything that has to do with any kind of 3D look to it. And then wedding cakes, I start at 700, and I tell them, this is pretty much really plain and very minimum decoration. And from there, depending on what they want on there, whether they want a sculpture, they want butterflies, they want flowers, I add on more and more to their price range. So it really depends. Like when people ask me, "Oh, can you make a Lord of the Rings cake?" and I go, yeah, just show me a picture and I will tell you the amount, because you can have a simple
Mm-hmm.
one and then you can have a really extreme one, and I could do both. And just depending on what they want is depends on how much it ends up being.
Mm-hmm. One thing I find really helpful in deciding what kind of a design to make for, sorry, for them, for a client, is to ask them their budget first. I know that some people have a problem with that as far as customers go. They don't want to tell you a budget because they're afraid that you will, go right to that budget. But, at least it gives you an idea of, because, this dragon cake, for example, you could go as simple as, making the basic shape, doing a simple texture on it, brushing on a little bit of detail, or you can go into the extreme and do as much detail as Vivian has put into this, where, you could make it a $300 cake or a $700 cake depending on how much work you put into it. And so you really do need to know what their budget is. In my honest opinion, I always ask them what their budget is before I even design a cake, because I have spent so many wasted hours sketching cakes just to realize that they have a $200 budget, and I'm like, well, So, yeah, know what their budget is, and then also you need to know, how much time it's going to take you to do the work that is going to be involved in it, and that's going to be, so you have to have enough experience to know how long it's going to take you to do something in order to get a fair price. So
that's true, and never sell yourself short. Like, honestly, never. No matter what, like, it's just gonna end up biting you in the end. If they want a cheap cake, to say, well, there's a store around the corner that sells them for $20 a pop.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I've had a Chef Rubber. He's really close to me, and I go in and I get to chat with him quite often. Chef Paul from Chef Rubber. Anyway, he makes this promise that if you raise your prices, you will find people that are willing to pay those prices. You will. And if you're sturdy on those prices, don't waver. If you have to turn down cakes, turn them down. It's not worth it in the end for you. You're going to end up hating what you do. It needs to be worth it. So, absolutely. I agree with you completely, Vivian. Okay. I don't know if you'll have a really good answer for this one, or I don't know if you're in a very humid place, but Paula asks, what is a good way to combat humidity with gum paste?
I would say, I would just not work during the day. Like, I work at night when it's a lot cooler, and I don't know if it's like, I'm in California, so the weather's pretty nice most of the time, but that summer it was really hot I think we were having a heat wave or something like that during that time too. So, but at night, typically it's a lot cooler, and I'm a night owl, so if I know it's going to be really extremely hot, then I just don't even try to make it during the day, because you're just going to end up working so hard in the heat, in the humidity, messing up, and just might as well just take a nap and then work on it when the sun goes down. So I think that would be my best bet, unless you have, I don't know, really good AC.
Yeah. Well, they do have dehumidifiers machines, I think, that might help out. Yeah, so. I never have either. I've never lived in a humid place. I'm in Vegas. I'm in Utah. They're both very dry, so I've never had the problem. So, let's see. We have another question from Veronica. Asks about your Rice Krispies. She said, do you grind your Rice Krispies prior to combining it with the marshmallows or after?
Prior. So, right when I get it from the box, I put it in the food processor, or I even squish it or something like that, so that it's just a lot finer. Most of the time I use half and half whole and half crush, just so the crush just fills in the tiny spots of it.
Fills in the gaps. Okay, that's a really good idea. I think that it makes sense that it would make it stronger and sturdier if it's got those fine grains in there to kind of, stick together, instead of just the marshmallows. So, because marshmallows melt.
Yep, it does.
All right. Someone asks if the Rice Krispie treats tend to make the project, is it lighter or is it heavier? Is it...
I think the whole thing was just heavy as it is, just because I added so much fondant and gum paste on top of it. So I would say maybe styrofoam would help, but then either way, it was gonna be a heavy cake in the end because the way I covered the dragon, it was overlapping fondant over and over and over again, and that creates a lot of weight. So I think it doesn't really matter whether it's Rice Krispie or styrofoam or another substance, but I guess it was just going to be heavy no matter what. So
All
I
right.
hope that answered that question a little.
Yeah. Well, okay, so the next question is, when you made that the dragon and put it on the cake, did you actually have support underneath the dragon
Oh
to
yeah,
hold it off of the cake? And
yeah.
can you explain the support that you used, maybe?
hmm I've used let's see, wooden dowels, the
Mm-hmm.
really thick ones, and underneath the dragon, I had probably I think it was plastic, not cardboard, holding the dragon. It was a thick plastic too, and then from where his four corners are like a square, I put four dowels and one in the middle, and I made sure they were really thick wooden dowels because I knew the dragon was going to be really heavy.
Yeah. So
Um,
you can't just do this right on top of a cake. It's gonna smash and
they
ruin
will
it.
smash or they tip over or one of the above, and the middle
Mm-hmm.
dowel actually went straight from the dragon and into the cake. The four other ones were just under the dragon itself. So I had a hole inside the bottom part of this plastic. And so that's how the dragon was able to stay in that position and not shift. And yeah.
Perfect. Okay, and we don't have any time for more questions. We'll ask one more. We'll ask one more, and I think this is a good one to end on. Carolyn Austin asks, from start to finish, how long did this cake take to make?
Shoot. I think, gosh, probably over anywhere between, 24 to 35 hours. I know that's a huge jump, but I was just working on it nonstop and I didn't even keep track on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like into the refrigerator you go or onto the cake and stuff because I had to refrigerate the cake too. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, sometimes we just don't keep track, right?
Yeah.
Especially when we're working on like competition pieces and stuff. It just has to be right. It doesn't matter how long it takes. It just has to be right. So, yep.
I mean,
All right.
I guess all the time, so.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, this is what is coming up with you. You've got a few things going on for you. I know that you're still, kind of. I wouldn't say new to the scene because you're so there already, but still kind of
No,
people that may not know Oklahoma State Sugar Art Show may not know who you are. So I mean, you're getting this fresh start. And are you looking to do classes and things like that, or is that something you're interested in doing? Are you more into the doing cakes for people, or what's in the works for you?
I I honestly I just love doing it all. Like I love making cakes for people. I love making people. I think that's one of my huge things. I love making people happy, and um and people like other school like my schools and some cake people and some other people have been asking me to do these demos, and I'm just so stoked that wow, they want me to do it, and so of course I say yes. And
Mm-hmm.
let's see, I love it all. Like I just love anything that has to do with cake decorating. It's just one of the biggest passion I have.
Awesome. Awesome. So it looks like you're going to be doing a demonstration in Virginia at the Busch Gardens. That will be really cool. Why
That
not?
would be
Food and Wine Festival. That's really cool.
Yeah, and on top of that, there's gonna be so many other amazing artists there too.
Hmm.
Between like bread artists, chocolate artists, sugar artists, and I'm just like, oh my god, I need to bring my autograph book, right?
Well,
I'm
you
so
know that
excited.
there will be people asking for yours, I'm sure. That's awesome. That's wonderful. And then demonstrations at the French Culinary Institute. They're in California.
Yes. So I actually did that last week already, and that went out so well that I think my school wanted me to come back again to do another demo. So I'm pretty
Very
stoked for that.
cool. Awesome. Well, congratulations on all of your successes. And I hope that things just keep rolling and moving for you because you've got such amazing talent and you deserve to be out there where everybody knows you and can see your work.
Thank you so much,
So
Amelia.
you're welcome. Thank you guys for listening, for joining us in this training. Hope you guys go out and try and practice some of these skills that you've been taught. Uh, It'll be fun, and maybe we'll see a few dragon cakes popping up.
That's true.
Who knows? My little sister, she's very into dragons, and she's coming to visit this weekend. And she said, "You can make one of those for me on my when I come." So who knows? Maybe I'll even make one. So thank you so much, Vivian,
Oh, thank
for
you.
coming and doing this for us. Everybody that's here really appreciates all of the information and the knowledge that they've been able to get from you. So.
Oh, and congrats on the 50th,
Oh
training video.
yeah, our 50th training, guys. This was it. This is so cool. It's a huge milestone for us, and I couldn't do it without all of you guys that are listening and all of the wonderful trainers that come on and teach such awesome things. So thank you guys. I really do. I really do love what I do, and you guys are amazing. All right. We will, I guess, see you guys all next week. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.